Welcome to Typecasting.
Pop culture by the numbers. That is your host, Lucas Graydon. I can't even say it.
Oh no.
That's your host, Lucas Graydon, who you can call Zendaya because he loves to shake things up.
Incredible. And that's your co-host, Murjanatu, who I'm pretty convinced shares a closet with Aunt May.
Oh, I didn't mean to screech to our listeners' ears. Okay, well.
Okay.
Here on Typecasting, two Enneagram Type 4s, our favorite, are having a spoiler-packed discussion of the best fictional characters and discovering where they fall on the Enneagram of personality.
There are a few ground rules here at Typecasting. Before we get down to business, let's review.
As always, every number and type is beautiful.
And number 2, the Enneagram is a tool, not a box.
And we only type fictional characters. You are always the authority on your own type, unless I'm feeling like having fun one day.
And rule number 4, our favorite, we are not experts.
All right, Lucas, kick us off with one of our favorite characters of all time.
I obviously love Peter Parker. We are so excited to be here talking about Spider-Man, one of Marvel's most popular characters. So, a quick fun fact about Peter Parker before we get into sharing what we think his number is. In Civil War, Captain America Civil War, in that whole airport battle that they are all fighting in, Spider-Man actually never throws a punch. It's an easy thing to miss. I actually didn't know this until I was looking it up, but they made the conscious decision that he only ever kicks at his opponents or throws webs and things like that because he's a kid and he's still kind of fighting like a kid. He's not really in the same league or even as aggressive as some of the other characters. So I just thought that was a really cool fun fact.
Yes, I love that. That is so cool. And now that you say it, I can think of it. And I always forget that those are like choreographed and how much work those are. And like to think of, it is amazing to think of all the work they have that goes into those fighting scenes and how much thought also goes into them.
Yes, to film the fight scenes and stuff.
Yeah, how much thought goes into that to like think like, okay, if Spider-Man's like 15 in this movie, he probably wouldn't feel comfortable punching like a grown man. So let's have him, like that's so intelligent and smart and so in character for him. I love that.
Yeah. And he's just such a sweetheart. Like he doesn't want to punch people. Oh, he's great. So let's get into what we think his number is. Murjanatu, where do you think Peter falls on the Enneagram?
Can I guess what you're going to guess?
Oh no. Okay. Yes, you can.
I think you're going to guess 2 unless we agree. And then you're going to guess 7.
7.
Yes.
Okay. I have him as a 3.
Oh my goodness, a 3? I'm shocked by that one. I did not see that coming.
I want to hear where you got to the 7. You go first.
Okay, so I was thinking just how excited so I have to start by saying that I'm just so surprised by it because you always think people are 6s and I never do. And I was thinking 6, just like he's so loyal to Ned. He's had the same friend his whole life. He's uber cautious. He's also kind of that nerd personality, which is not necessarily equal to a 6. But just the fact that he's like, I feel like he's very anxious for what's to come. But also he always goes along with it. Like he is a kid and he goes to Berlin with Tony Stark and he knows he's fighting Captain America. I mean, he's down for the party. And I actually think of the literal party scenes that he has. And he just always seems to be down for the adventure, even if he's going to get made fun of. He asks out the prettiest girl to homecoming. Like he is who he is, and he's so down to do it. But I think he has that anxious 6 in him as well, and I think they kind of balance each other out. So I just think of like a lot of 7-week 6s where that conflicting nature kind of comes in, and I think that's the perfect Peter Parker story, but I could settle on 6-wing-7 or 7-wing-6. And so I think about how also he his longing to accomplish, but I think he's also kind of just down for a good time. And so it's funny to me that you say 3, but I'm not like I think I could be persuaded but I'm just thinking of all of the times she's like doing these like silly things, and I think just being a teenager with superpowers. Like, I think one of the things that I also want to clarify is there are like 2 different thoughts on the Enneagram, and one of them is that like a lot of people believe that like you are shaped into your number. It's not necessarily something you're born with. And I kind of feel like Peter Parker is someone who like these experiences are super shaping him because he still is like a kid. And I
Right,
think the
right.
like 7's like coming, it's like bubbling up. But I also see that like little timid and anxiety, but he always actually ends up going for it. So I think he's a 7-wing-6.
Okay. I love your theory. I actually think, and maybe this is just because I seem to love typing people as 6s, I think I could really be convinced of the 6-wing-7, and I'll get
Okay.
into that, but I will start with where I kind of came in on things. Like I said, a 3,
Okay.
and I think you were right. You were close when you were guessing that I would say a 2, because I do feel he's like a 3-wing-2 or a 2-wing-3. I feel him in that area because he has such a sense of personal responsibility for other people. And I think about, even though this quote isn't actually in the movies, the "with great power comes great responsibility," it's kind of the
Mm-hmm.
unspoken quote over the whole thing because it's been in all the other Spider-Man movies. But he does have that line with Tony in Civil War when Tony asks him why he's doing this. And he says,
Look, when you can do the things that I can, but you don't, and then the bad things happen, they happen because of you.
and I think that quote speaks really heavily to his internal conflict. He feels responsible for all of the bad things that happened in his life. We don't, I think, really get to see it in the movies, but it's hinted at. I think he feels responsible for his Uncle Ben's death. And I don't know how his Uncle Ben passed away inside of the MCU, but obviously in the comics, in a lot of common iterations of his origin story, he did have some responsibility for Uncle Ben's death. And so he carries a lot of that weight around with him. And we even see with Tony's death, he feels like he could have done something because Mysterio in Spider-Man Far From Home tells him, like, you weren't good enough, and that's why Tony died.
If you were good enough, maybe Tony would still be alive.
And I think he is speaking to a lot of those fears that Peter has about trying to prove himself, trying to be good enough. And it reminded me of some of our past conversations. I think you've mentioned it with Thor and things like that about, oh, maybe so-and-so is a 3 because they have such a desire to prove themselves. And I think that's where I saw the 3. But for him and the wing 2 or the 2-wing-3, I was thinking he has a desire to prove himself, but by helping people. Like, he needs to help people. He feels responsible for people. And so that's kind of where I started. But I love your idea about somewhere over in the 6 and the 7. And I can totally see some of that personal responsibility and that, like, taking responsibility for every bad thing that happens because you don't prepare well enough or you don't save other people, being that 6 in him. And I think other times when I have said, oh, so-and-so is a 6, you, and rightly so, like to question, like, oh, but where are those like beautiful tight knit relationships? And I think we can really see those with Peter. We obviously, you can see it with Ned, and I think he and Ned have a really beautiful friendship as two outcasts. And maybe the fact that he is an outcast, and I think Peter's comfortable being an outcast, I don't think he cares, is something that could draw me away from the 3 and closer to the 6, where he has
Yes.
his group of people and like they are comfortable just being the kids who want to build the Lego Death Star after school. Like, they have each other and they are secure and confident in that. And something that I think pulls me closer to that 6-wing-7 than that 7-wing-6 would be thinking about Peter's ability to be in touch with his emotions. I think we see in a lot of different movies, he is not afraid to feel his feelings when he is trapped under all the rubble at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming and just breaks down and cries. And when he is on the plane with Happy after Mysterio has hit him with a train and he's crying about Tony and about not being able to be the next Iron Man.
Everywhere I go, I see his face. And the whole world is asking who's going to be the next Iron Man. I don't know if that's me happy. I'm not Iron Man.
I think that he is in touch with his feelings. I think that he is a sensitive person in a way that I think sevens are sometimes averse to. So I could really see that six-wing seven, though. Because even the beginning of the first Spider-Man movie, when he is making his little video diary, you're right, he is having the time of his life. He does enjoy having the powers and having fun. And so I do see a lot of the really beautiful parts of the seven. But I think that he does have a closer relationship with his feelings than maybe some sevens naturally do.
Yes. I think you're so right. I think I could settle on the six-wing seven. Also, like, I think I really lean into the wing seven, probably more than the five, because he is a thinker, like, also. Like, he's invented so many parts of who he is, and, like, I think he would have done just fine if Tony Stark never intervened. Like, he's a smart, wicked smart kid. And so I see a lot of those five characteristics. And so, but I think I lean on the seven. I just think of, like, I think kind of how Mysterio tricked him. Like, I don't think he was, like, really excited to give up that responsibility. And I think I hear what you're saying earlier when you're talking about the three and the weight of that stuff. But I think a lot of that is his fear of the worst case scenario that we see with sixes, right? Like, if everyone, and when people die and you have powers like this, I'm paraphrasing, it becomes your fault. And I think that's more him, like, I can see that responsibility and carrying that, but I also can see it being because of the fact that he feels responsibility and he can see the worst case scenario, and he's worried, so worried that he's going to do everything in his power to prevent that from happening. And I think of that. I think of, like, and I think, like, how he was just so quick to, like, let go of his responsibility and give it to Mysterio, which, like, cannot blame him, but he just wants to be a kid and have fun and, like, fall in love and be a seven. And, like, I think I totally agree. I think he's, like, pretty, like, in the middle on a six-wing seven, but he is.
And he's also, he doesn't have that, like, inclination to the spotlight that I think a lot of threes do. Like, he doesn't want the attention. He does a little bit want some of that, like, social status, and especially the first Spider-Man movie where he's telling people, or Ned is telling people that, like, oh, Peter knows Spider-Man, but
Ned is doing it, not Peter.
Right, exactly. Peter, like, doesn't want all that attention. He even turns down, like, the Iron Spider suit because he's like, oh no, this is a test, right? Like, you don't actually want me to become an Avenger, and he is like, I can do more good, like, where I'm at as a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, in a way that I think pulls me away from the three as well. I saw the three when I was watching the beginning of Homecoming, and he's joking around with the guy at the bodega, and I'm like, oh, like, he's kind of cheeky. He loves his quips. He loves, like, all of those, like, fun, like, he's very quick-witted, and he loves his, like, fun back and forths, and he makes the jokes and stuff. And so I saw some of that, like, easygoing charisma of the three, but I don't think he has that, like, inclination towards attention that I think we see a lot in the Achiever. Wow, I did not expect, first of all, to type Peter as a 6, but I definitely did not expect you to convince me to type Peter as a 6.
See, yes, I have nothing. I feel like the sixes out there are like, wow, Murjanatu does not believe. I'm like, I'm giving you the best character in the MCU, first of all.
Seriously, no, this brings me so much joy for the 6.
I love them. I love a 6 when people are actually 6s. And I mean, even when they're not, I love most people, but so, like, I'm gonna give you a good 6. When I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it right. You know what I mean?
I see. Fair enough.
Yes. All right. Time to introduce one of my favorite characters, not only in the MCU but in the comics. Like, at work, people call me this name because I saw this movie and I was like, maybe I should go by MJ.
Ooh. So, I've never thought about that before. That's kind of fun.
Yeah, well, here's the deal. My name is Murjanatu, and sometimes I get annoyed when people call me MJ because I'm like, that's literally just a random letter in my name. But then sometimes I remember, like, this MJ, and I'm, like, so into it.
Right. It would not be my natural idea of a nickname, but then I'm like, well, there is a J in there. Like, you can go for it.
Yeah, you can M-A, M-T, there's a lot of letters. Okay, so I have 2 fun facts today. The first one that I think is really interesting is that originally Shailene Woodley was going to play MJ in Amazing Spider-Man 2 before the character was cut.
Okay, loved is maybe a strong word, but I enjoyed the Amazing Spider-Man movies, I think, more than a lot of people. Maybe, and I'm showing my age here. I'm a little younger. I didn't grow up with as close of an affinity for the Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, but I did watch the Andrew Garfield movies as they came out, and I was like, oh, these are fun. Like, I have nothing against them, but that's interesting. I find it interesting that Shailene Woodley was like, yeah, I'll be in a comic book movie, but she was, before Big Little Lies and everything, she obviously was in the Divergent series, so maybe I could see it. As a redhead, though?
Well, obviously, maybe they wouldn't have done the redhead thing. I don't know. I love it, though. Okay, and then the director revealed in an interview, this is an interesting one, too, that the primary inspiration for MJ was actually Allison Reynolds, or Ally Sheedy, from The Breakfast Club, and Lindsay Ware, also known as Linda Cardellini, from Freaks and Geeks.
Love Linda Cardellini.
I know you do.
Appreciate a Linda Cardellini reference in any episode we can squeeze it in.
That's why I name dropped.
But that's really interesting, and I totally see, especially like The Breakfast Club, The Basket Case, like that makes a lot of sense.
Yes. Okay. Lucas, tell me what you think about MJ.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know if we're going to have much of a conversation about this because I just feel like Michelle or MJ is the forest 4 to ever 4. Like, I wish there was more to it, but she is just, she's a 4. That is my first and final answer. What do you think?
Okay. I also believe she is a 4. I told you when we first listened to this, or we first decided this podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, MJ is a 5. And you were like, what? She's such a 4. And I was like, oh, yeah, she is. So I feel bad. But sometimes my good friend is a 5-4. And when I saw the movie, I texted her. I was like, I don't even know if you love Marvel, but you need to see this. And so a lot of times my decisions on these characters are based on people I know in real life. But yeah, I mean, she is the 4 that we are not. I feel like if people don't know the Enneagram and they only know us, they might not know what a true 4 presents as.
I feel that.
So maybe, Lucas, would you talk through what a stereotypical 4 is for the listeners?
Right. And obviously, and you said true 4, and I totally know what you mean. Obviously, all expressions of types are. That's actually why rule number 3 is that the Enneagram is a tool and not a box, because you can identify with whatever number feels most closely related to you without being the prototypical image of what that number might be.
Exactly. And that's why I said stereotypical.
Exactly.
What people think.
It took me a very long time to realize that I was a 4, because especially when you read about 4s, a lot of the maybe personality traits and characteristics that come up, they'll tell you that 4s are moody and withdrawn, and they're often quiet, and they are really into poetry and sad music. And honestly, I do love sad music and being in my feels, but you often find 4s are not like other people. 4s love to feel different, and I am guilty of this. But
we're
MJ
not like
especially,
everyone else. We're a 4.
Yes,
we're not like other girls.
4s are not like other girls, and you can, I think, see in MJ that her favorite flower is the black dahlia because of the murder.
When we go to Venice is super famous for making stuff out of glass, right? True. So I'm gonna buy her a black dahlia necklace because her favorite flower is the black dahlia because of, the murder. The murder.
And MJ is 16 years old. She knows what she's doing. It's not her favorite flower because of the murder. She just knows that if she tells people that it's her favorite flower because of the murder, they're going to think she's edgy and weird. And she wants to be known as weird, she puts on some of that performance, I think. And I think that sometimes you'll find 4s will do that. They want to be perceived as different and as unique and as special as they possibly can. And I think that we see that in MJ a lot, especially because
And we are special, Lucas. We are special.
Oh,
we are different.
Obviously. Are you kidding? Well, what I was going to say is, obviously, you may see some of what MJ does as like an affectation, or she's putting on being maybe a little bit more moody or a little bit weirder, quote unquote, than she maybe naturally is. And I think that as we see her and Peter's relationship grow in Far From Home, and we see her kind of bring down some of those walls, we see her act just a little bit more like, maybe with a few less performances up. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. She's acting at the opera. Like, she is kind of letting her guard down, being more vulnerable, and kind of being more true to herself, I think.
You look really pretty.
And therefore I have value?
No, that's not what I meant at all. I was just...
I'm messing with you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You look pretty too.
And I think that 4s are on a constant journey of learning what it means to be true to themselves. They will go through many different phases. They will grow out their hair for 2 years for no reason and walk around with a man bun. And I'm not talking about myself. What? And like put on maybe different personas and different faces to try and figure out like who they are deep down, because that's their existential question. But I think even when we talked about Bucky and Cap and Falcon a few weeks back, and you were like, wait, is Bucky a 4? Like, Bucky definitely, like, look at him at Tony's funeral. He is, like, dressed to the 4, but,
yes.
like, his 4 has nothing on MJ.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't. And I love it. And I think that, you know, we both, like you said, we're both 4s in our own way. So we're like, oh my gosh, that's so different from everyone else. So anyway, I think we can, I don't know if we just want to move on over to our next character.
I think before we do, I would love to talk just briefly about the wings, I think.
Okay.
Because I could see an argument for both. I think the wing 3, in the way that she is so, like, noticeably like, oh, I'm different, you know, like I think that there is a part of her that like of the 3 that like she does like to be noticed as different. Like, she wants people to know that she's different from everyone else. But as you said, like, your first instinct was her as a 5 wing 4, and I think we could see some of the 5 in there too. So I want to know kind of where you think the wing falls for her.
Yeah, for sure. So I strongly feel that she's a 4 wing 5. I think, like, first of all, their school is just, like, you know, and I hate to just be like, okay, 5s are brainiacs, but I do think she's she is very intuitive, but she's very within herself, and I think she reads a lot, she does know about literature, like, she's just really into that thing, and I think as much as she is, like, putting on a show, like, that's just, like, who she is also, you know what I mean? It's not, like, for clout.
Right, that's 100% true.
I'm a wing 3, 4 wing 3. And, like, a lot of point, like, if I couldn't post about it, like, I don't know if I would do it. You know what I mean? It's an identity crisis we're going through right now, actually. And so I think that with her, I think she just doesn't have those 3 qualities at all. Like, I think she's spending the money to take this trip abroad after the world just ended because she wants to. Like, not because it'll look on her Instagram. Like, and I think when she's, like, she doesn't care about what people, like, think of her. And I think she probably also measures success by her own standards. I don't think she, like, would be convinced of anyone else's.
Wow. Honestly, I'm so glad I asked about the wings, because I am a 4 wing 5, and I feel like I just got a ton of compliments. Like, every compliment that you paid Michelle, I feel like you were also giving to me. So I'll take it. I will also gladly take MJ as a 4 wing 5 right alongside me. I'm excited to, I agree. And I'm excited to have that kinship with her.
Love it.
Okay. Now I think we can move on to our third and final character for this episode. We're going to talk about Peter's best friend, his bestie for the restie, Ned Leeds. Ned is his quote-unquote man in the chair, as he likes to be called. And a quick fun fact about him is that in the comics, Ned was actually a supervillain named Hobgoblin. So obviously he and Peter started as friends, but he was brainwashed. He was actually brainwashed. So not totally of his own accords, but
Lucas, I grew up reading comics and stuff.
Right.
I had no idea that Ned was Hobgoblin. Like, I know who that is.
Made the connection. Oh my gosh.
No, this is shocking. My feelings are kind of hurt. Like,
right?
Also, I feel attacked a little bit. What?
I wonder.
Wow.
I wonder if we will ever get to see Ned suit up as Hobgoblin in the movies.
Hope not. The Hobgoblin is the worst. I am literally shocked by this. Whoa. That is supposed to be Ned?
Mm-hmm.
Have you, are you familiar with the... Sorry. Okay, we can get back on track. That makes me think differently about this whole charade. Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
If it makes you feel any better, I did read that Ned bears a lot of resemblance to actually Miles Morales' best friend, even more so than his namesake, Ned Leeds from the comics, who's Hobgoblin. In the Ultimate Universe, which is where Miles Morales Spider-Man is from, his best friend is apparently much more similar in personality to Ned of the movies. So if it makes you feel any better, I do think we may be safe from a future with Ned as Hobgoblin in the movies.
Yeah,
I hope so. Okay,
yeah,
so...
Okay, interesting. Sorry, everyone, to take you on that detour of self-discovery. That's what this podcast is all about.
Yes, it is. So tell me what you think his number is.
Oh, my goodness, Lucas. I honestly... 6s are getting some love today.
Oh, really?
I feel as though... I don't know. I love Ned. I think he's such a fun, character. I wish he were the main character. I think we could really use, a Ned show. Disney Plus, hit me up for a pitch.
Yes.
Of, where Ned's the main character. And,
Sold.
He just, finds out his best friend happens to be Spider-Man. But, he's still the forefront. And I think it would also be cool to, see a show where, we see Ned during the blip. And then, it makes the reunion when Ned and Peter see each other for the first time after the snap.
Oh, I love that scene. They're looking for each other through the hallways, through the crowds of people.
Oh, I love Ned. So I'm going with a 6-wing-5, which I don't know, if 6s are normally friends with each other. I don't have that research in front of me, but I think he's a 6-wing-5. Lucas, what do you think?
Okay. 6-wing-5 is throwing me a little off guard. Was not expecting that.
Okay.
I was between a couple numbers. Namely, my first thought was the 2. And that's very much, I think, down to the way that Ned fulfills his role in the Spider-Man movies. But he is just such a steadfast friend. And he is such a helper. He loves to be there for Peter when he can. He loves to be the man in the chair. But I also had... maybe a 7. So
okay.
Interesting that you kind of started with Peter around the 7, because I see similarly, Ned just has such joy at the fact that his best friend is Spider-Man. He's I want to help however I can help. I want to be there. Oh, this is so cool. I think sometimes for him, it's hard to recognize the real danger of things, because he's just so in love with the adventure of it. And so I do see some of him just that fun lovingness, and maybe even that 7-wing-6, because I don't see a ton of the 8 in him. But maybe there's a 7-wing-6 there, and the Peter is the 6-wing-7. But I just I love how good of a friend he is, and I love his willingness to just support Peter. And that's where I think my first instinct was the 2, and I can see him as the 2. But I'm interested in the 6-wing-5 mainly just because I don't think I would have guessed it. I can see the 5. I see his love for information and his love to kind of sit behind a computer screen and get stuff done. But I don't know that I would have ever ended up there on my own. So I'm torn. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about the 2 or the 7 or any of that stuff?
I thought you might pick the 2 for him. It's interesting because I do think that the writer's kind of Ned's going to encourage him, or Ned's not sure what's happening, period, but he's going to encourage Peter to do. I think sometimes they just play around, and I know some best friendships, I think some people who met me with my, us, we seem very similar on the surface. And so I'm like wondering. I
had
don't
a
feel
thought.
good about the 2. Okay,
I just had a thought about the 2. I was just thinking about, not only does he love to help Peter, but he also loves to be the only one who knows. He loves to be Peter's like only person. There's that funny little scene after he finds out that MJ now knows in Far From Home, and he talks about like, oh, you let her in on the secret. Like, oh, how long have you known? Like, I knew first. Like, I've been kind of the one person, I think.
So, too. It's cool. I mean, I've known first and I've known longer, but it's not a competition.
Like, and I do think that he has a sense of like pride in like being Peter's person, that even though it's definitely played for comedic effect, but I could see him maybe exemplifying some of the 2 there in the way that the 2 can like hold really deeply, like, and value very deeply their relationships with people, and sometimes have a sense of possession over their relationships. And obviously, like I said, that scene is played for jokes, but I do think that there is maybe something underlying that is more representative of maybe that type 2, where he's like, oh, well, I knew first, like, I've known the secret longer. I'm the one who can really help because I'm the one with the skills. And I think there is, I'm not sure that I see as much of that like anxiety or the like weight of the responsibility of the 6. Like, I don't know that I see him planning for worst case scenarios, whether that be because he's the 7 and he's just kind of high energy and kind of joy oriented first, or because he's the 2 and he's not about like worrying and he's more about like, okay, how can I help? Like, what do you need? Like, how do I help? I'm not sure that I see the 6. Like, maybe that's where I am between the 2 and the 7. But I just had that thought as we were talking about that scene in the hotel in Far From Home, and maybe how that plays into his type 2.
I will settle with you on the 2. Definitely
Okay.
on a wing 1. I don't see a perfectionist bone in his body. I love the 3 idea.
Yes.
I think like also like think of him like wearing his fedora to that party. Like, he's such a ham. Like,
What a great point. Yes. And he does have that, like, he does have that part of himself, like we were talking about with Peter, where Ned's the one who wants everyone to know that Peter's friends with Spider-Man. Like, Ned is the one who, like, wants people to know that, like, they're cool.
He's probably like 30.
You don't even know what he looks like. Like, what if he's, like, seriously burned?
I wouldn't care. I would still love him for the person he is on the outside.
Peter knows Spider-Man.
No, I don't. No. I mean...
They're friends.
Yeah, like Coach Wilson and Captain America are friends.
I've met him, yeah, a couple times. But it's, through the Stark internship.
In a way that I could even see that wing 3. I love the way you put that. I think you're right. I don't see a perfectionist bone in Ned's body. Like, and maybe that's 3 and that 7, I think, have some similarities in how they can present sometimes. So maybe that, like, wing 3 is where he really, like, can ham it up and, like, have fun. And, like, he likes attention if he can get it, you know? I like that. I could see the 2 wing 3.
I'm in it. All right. Whoa. That was a good session.
What a good group of characters. This was a fun one. I loved it.
All right. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. That was really fun. As always, I want to hear everything you're thinking. Send us an email. Let us know what you're thinking on our socials. You can do that at Typecasting Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Or you can email us at typecastingpod@gmail.com. Especially, like, guys, I cannot say it enough. Like, if you agree with me, please. Okay, on our website, typecastingpod.com.
Yes. And be sure to run over to your favorite podcast app, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Pod, and leave us a good review. And if you want to get in touch with Murjanatu or I, you can find Murjanatu on the internet. She is at Murjana2_ on Twitter, and at Murjana2 on Instagram. Or you can just click on the links in the show notes. Nobody will know the difference. I am all over the internet, but you can find my work and different ways to get in touch with me at lucasgraydon.com. And I cannot wait for next week when we get to take on some of our Infinity Stone powered heroes by the numbers.